Hey everyone, welcome back into the Birdland Network where we talk all things Orioles and Major League Baseball. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about the Orioles and the Orioles' struggles here of lately. They've been a sub 500 team now for about 5 weeks. Started in late June, all of July, and so far in August they haven't won a game. They're 2 games in and they're 0-2. But I think this all reverts back to 2 guys, to be honest with you. I think it really falls on 2 guys, and I'm not blaming them. I just think the Orioles go how they go. So when they struggle, the Orioles struggle. When they're doing good, the Orioles doing good. And I have some numbers here to kind of show where I'm getting this from and why I feel this way. But before we get into that, if you are new here, please consider subscribing. Just give us a subscribe button push there and a thumbs up because it definitely helps the video. So let's get into this a little bit. June for the Orioles, April and May were good, played really well. I was worried about June because when we got into June, I'm thinking to myself, I looked at the schedule and the Orioles played a lot of really good teams in June, and I was worried. But they had a good June. They did really well in June. They were well over 500, played really, really well. But it started to fall, the wheels started to fall off late June. I guess we can pinpoint probably around the 21st, 22nd of June, and then into July. And July just wasn't a good month for the Orioles. They were under 500 for the first time since early 2022, and they went 12-13 in the month, and the struggles were apparent across the entire team. But I'm going to pinpoint it to 2 guys, and I always say that your team goes only as far as your best players are going to be able to take you, and I think it falls to Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson. Now, these 2 guys are my 2 favorite players on the team, and this isn't me blaming them. It just shows you how important these 2 guys are to the Orioles and their success. So we'll talk about Gunnar first. Let's talk about Gunnar's June. Okay, these are his numbers in June. And again, the Orioles did really, really well in June. He had 114 at-bats. He had 31 runs scored, 39 hits, 11 doubles, 8 home runs, 17 RBIs, 17 walks. His average was 342 for the month, with a 427 on-base percentage and a 649 slugging. He was awesome in June. He played really, really well. Played a good defense at shortstop as well, and he was a big part of why the Orioles in June were as successful as they were. Now let's look at his July. And I'll start with fielding first before I even talk about his numbers in hitting. But his fielding in July was not good. He's actually starting to rack up the errors at shortstop. Fielding and throwing errors. I think he's up to like 18 errors for the season. His defense in July was not as great as it's normally been. He's had several errors during the month, and they've cost the Orioles. But now let's look at his July numbers hitting-wise. 98 at-bats, 15 runs scored, 27 hits, 3 doubles, 2 triples, 2 home runs the whole month of July, 7 RBIs, 10 walks. He batted .276, 343 on base percentage, and a 408 slugging. So his numbers have really decreased from June to July, and I think that plays a big part in what the Orioles are doing. He's not hitting as many home runs. He's not driving in as many guys. .276 average isn't bad, and the slugging and everything isn't bad, but he wasn't as dominant as he was early. Okay, and when you look at his percentile rankings for the season for Gunnar Henderson, everything is well above average. But I think a lot of that was, and I'm going to say a lot of the same for Adley when we get to him, was accumulated early for him. I mean, if you look at his batting run average, his base running average, everything is in the high 80s to 90s. He's still just such a stud for the Orioles. But his offensive power numbers, not just home runs, doubles, triples, driving guys in, have gone down in the month of July. And I think I don't know if he's tired or what, but I've noticed his exit velocity. He seems to have more weak ground balls hit than he was having earlier in the season. And I think it's been a big part of why the Orioles have struggled in the month. And that's just Gunnar. Now let's talk a little bit about Adley. Adley, we're going to get into his numbers as well. So let's talk about Adley Rutschman, who I still think is the best catcher in baseball. Just my humble opinion. His June numbers, he had 107 at-bats, 15 runs scored, 31 hits, 4 doubles, 5 home runs, 18 RBI, 17 walks, .290 average, 381 on-base percentage, and a 467 slugging. Very good numbers for Adley in the month of June. But now we go to July, and as much as I talk about Gunnar, I think the bigger number has to look at Adley. 76 at bats, 10 runs, 10 hits, one double, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, 13 walks, a 132 batting average, a 258 on base percentage, and a 224 slugging. Adley has really struggled in July, and I think you look at that, and I think that's a big predicator as to why the Orioles have struggled this year. Same with Adley. When you look at his overall percentile rankings, really good rankings. I mean, he's got a 100 blocks above average, a 100. I mean, he's perfect. His squared up in hitting, his whiff rate, his K rate, all above average. He on base average, on base expected batting average, all of that fantastic for him. But a lot of that I think was accumulated early. He had a really good June, he had a really good May and April. But I think when you look at the numbers for July, him and Gunnar have struggled the most. Anthony Santander had a good month in July, just like he did in June. Was hitting home runs, getting on base. Same with Cowser. Colton Cowser got hot in the middle of July and was doing better. But these two guys have struggled in July, and I think that is where I'm pinpointing why the Orioles have struggled. They need these two guys to get hot again, and soon, so that the O's can make a second half run. Because if they go 500 the rest of the season, you're looking at about 90 wins. That's a big drop from 101. That's an 11-win drop from the season before. So I think the Orioles really need Gunnar to get going. They need Adley to get going, and if they do, I think you'll see a change in how the Orioles play. I really, really do. But there you go, guys. That's my post for today. I wanted to kind of get that out there. I think everybody's like, why are the Orioles struggling so much lately? I think it really falls to their two big stars, Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson. The Orioles go how they go. They struggle, the Orioles struggle. They're doing good, the Orioles are doing good. And that's my opinion. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? What's the main reason why the Orioles are struggling so much? Let me know what you think in the comments. Also, again, if you are new here, please consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button and the bell notification, and also give us a thumbs up. Thanks, guys. Fingers crossed the Orioles start turning this around. These guys start hitting. Still exciting times. Getting a little worried, but hopefully they'll turn things around. Thanks for watching. If you've watched this long, keep rooting for the O's, and take care of yourselves and each other.